In the bustling tarmac of Westlake International Airport, a scene unfolded that would challenge perceptions and ignite a movement. A black mechanic, Marcus Jennings, arrived in his battered pickup truck, drawing scornful looks from the elite and dismissive glances from the corporate world. Minutes later, the world's gaze shifted as Alexandra Evans, CEO of Evans Aerospace, surprised everyone by stepping onto the scene. Her jet gleamed in the morning sun, a symbol of luxury and power, but it was Marcus who drew the attention. Marcus, 38 years old, with hands scarred from years of hard labor, unloaded his toolbox with quiet dignity. His appearance, worn jeans, a faded shirt, and calloused hands, contrasted sharply with the pristine environment of the private hangar. The executives inside exchanged skeptical looks, whispering among themselves. Richard Hastings, the director of operations, voiced his disdain openly. "Is this the expert they called for?" he sneered. "I thought we asked for the best technician in the area, not someone who looks like he just rolled out of a roadside repair shop." Marcus heard the comment but chose to ignore it. His focus was on the task at hand. What no one knew was that those rough hands had saved more luxury aircraft than all the certified technicians combined. Over 15 years, Marcus had repaired executive jets, earning national awards for technical excellence. Yet, his face, his appearance, made more of an impression than his impressive resume. The pressure was urgent. The jet, a Gulfstream G650 valued at $65 million, needed to take off in 2 hours. The runway supervisor approached, keeping a cautious distance. "Mrs. Evans' jet needs to be ready," he said. "Our technicians haven't identified the problem. If you don't fix it in time, we'll have to call the Atlanta team." Marcus approached the jet, observing its gleaming surface and the complex systems beneath. As he examined the main access panel, he immediately understood the gravity of the situation. The pressurization system had a catastrophic failure, a problem previous technicians had mistaken for a simple electrical issue. If the jet took off in that condition, it would depressurize at 45,000 feet, killing everyone on board. His hands moved with surgical precision. He set to work, diagnosing and repairing the system. No one realized that he wasn't just making repairs, he was saving lives. Alexandra Evans watched him through the glass, her gaze different from the others, focused, intrigued, and recognizing something beyond the surface. 30 minutes later, Marcus finished. He closed the panel, wiped his hands on a worn cloth, and began gathering his tools. His work was done. No thanks were expected or given. For people like him, doing the job perfectly was the minimum expectation. Celebration was unnecessary. Alexandra Evans emerged from the terminal, walking purposefully toward Marcus, ignoring her staff's confused glances. Her navy blue suit contrasted sharply with her styled brown hair. She approached him directly. "How much time do you need?" she asked. "Depends on the problem, ma'am," Marcus replied, meeting her gaze. "You have 1 hour," she said, checking her wristwatch. "Impress me." Marcus nodded. He opened the main access panel again and quickly identified the issue, a failure in the pressurization system that had been misdiagnosed. His hands worked with precision, replacing parts and recalibrating the system. As he worked, he was acutely aware of Alexandra's watchful eyes. Her gaze was different, no contempt, but recognition. 15 minutes later, the system was restored. Marcus closed the panel, wiped his hands, and prepared to leave. His job was complete, and he knew that no gratitude was necessary. For him, excellence was the standard. As he turned to leave, Alexandra approached him again. "How long would it have taken your team to find this problem?" she asked. "Not long," Marcus replied. "But they wouldn't have looked here. The previous technicians missed it." She studied him for a moment, then spoke softly. "Come with me." Everyone else in the hangar watched in silence as Alexandra led Marcus away from the jet and into a private area of the terminal. The atmosphere was tense, filled with unspoken questions. Inside her office, Alexandra closed the door and motioned for Marcus to sit. "Did you tell me your full name?" she asked, her eyes studying him. "Marcus Jennings," he replied. Her fingers typed into her tablet, and her eyes widened slightly. She looked at the initials engraved on the original blueprints of the G7 pressurization system, MJ. "Marcus Jennings," she murmured. "The initials on the original designs. You designed the G7 system." Marcus remained impassive, but felt a flicker of emotion. He had designed that system 5 years ago, a system that had revolutionized fuel efficiency and maintenance costs, earning Richard Hastings promotions and bonuses. Yet, he had been dismissed shortly after submitting his work. "Why do you repair jets like a common mechanic?" Alexandra asked bluntly. "Your resume shows you've won awards, patents, and a master's degree in aerospace engineering. Why are you here?" Marcus hesitated briefly. "Because no one hires a black engineer from the suburbs to lead development teams. Mechanics have bills to pay." Her eyes softened slightly. She pulled out a folder containing documents about the G7 system. She leafed through them, revealing the profits, $428 million over 5 years, reduced fuel consumption by 23%, maintenance costs by 31%. Richard Hastings had received the credit and the bonuses. "While I fixed jets," Marcus said quietly, "he took the credit." The door suddenly opened. Richard Hastings entered, his face a mask of false concern. "Alexandra, the board is waiting for you on the video conference. We need to discuss." "Actually," Alexandra interrupted, "we're discussing intellectual property." She looked directly at Hastings. Specifically, the G7 system. Hastings's face paled. "There must be some mistake. I supervised the development." Before he could finish, Dr. Sophia Chun, Evans Aerospace's chief legal officer, entered with a thick folder. Her presence commanded attention. "Forgive me for being late," she said. "I had to double-check the records." She nodded politely to Marcus. "And yes, I've confirmed everything. The digital signature on the original files matches Mr. Jennings's work, not yours, Mr. Hastings." Hastings's face contorted. "That's impossible. He was just an assistant technician. The system was developed entirely by my team." "Emails from you," Sophia continued, "recommend dismissing Mr. Jennings for technical incompetence just 3 days after he submitted his design." Marcus watched silently, feeling a mixture of vindication and exhaustion. 5 years ago, he had been humiliated and dismissed, branded as incompetent. Now, the truth was surfacing. Alexandra looked at Hastings with cold resolve. "Mr. Hastings, you are temporarily relieved of your duties pending an internal investigation. Please hand over your badge." Hastings's face twisted with rage. "You can't do this." "Actually," Alexandra said firmly, "I can, and I will." As Hastings stormed out, slamming the door behind him, Alexandra turned to Marcus. "We have 2 weeks until the shareholders' meeting. We need concrete evidence." Marcus nodded. "I have something better." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. The original prototype and development records, all digitally signed and dated. Her eyes widened. "Recordings." "From 5 years ago," Marcus confirmed. "Hastings explaining how to discredit my contribution and hide my work." Sophia looked impressed. "How did you get these?" "I grew up repairing electronics in the poorest neighborhoods," Marcus said softly. "I learned early that I needed insurance against people like Hastings." In that moment, Alexandra saw not just a mechanic but a strategist, a man who had turned years of invisibility into a weapon. His appearance was his camouflage, his mind, his power. The internal investigation at Evans Aerospace was swift and decisive. Alexandra Evans, with Dr. Sophia Chun's legal expertise, assembled irrefutable evidence of systemic discrimination and intellectual theft. The story of Marcus Jennings was no longer just about one man's triumph, but a revelation of a deeply rooted culture of prejudice and corruption within the industry. Meanwhile, outside the company walls, Richard Hastings was making desperate moves. From the parking lot, he called colleagues on the board, trying to rally support and discredit Marcus's evidence. Unbeknownst to him, every call was being monitored, every document tracked. Back inside Evans' headquarters, Alexandra and Marcus prepared for the upcoming shareholders' meeting. The stakes had never been higher. Alexandra's secret weapon was a comprehensive report detailing decades of discrimination, theft, and cover-ups, evidence that would shake the very foundation of Evans Aerospace. As the day of the meeting approached, Alexandra revealed her plan to Marcus. "We're going to present everything," she said. "The discrimination, the theft, Hastings's misconduct. We'll show the board that talent and integrity matter more than race or status." Marcus nodded. "And I'll testify. I want the world to know what really happened." The meeting was tense. Shareholders, executives, and media gathered in a grand auditorium. Alexandra took the stage, flanked by Sophia and Marcus. She presented irrefutable evidence, emails, patents, recordings, and told the story of systemic injustice. Hastings's voice echoed through the speakers, trying to dismiss the allegations. But the evidence was overwhelming. The room erupted in murmurs and whispers. Finally, Alexandra played the recordings, Hastings explaining how to erase Marcus's contributions and discredit him. The room fell silent. The fallout was swift. Hastings's professional credentials were revoked, and he faced multiple lawsuits. His reputation was destroyed. He was no longer a player in the industry. In contrast, Marcus's story became a symbol of justice and resilience. The company announced a new initiative, a program to identify and reward employees whose ideas had been stolen, and an innovation fund aimed at supporting marginalized communities. The company's stock plummeted initially but soon rebounded as Evans Aerospace embraced diversity and inclusion as core values. The industry took notice. Months after the scandal, Evans Aerospace underwent a transformation. The executive floor was no longer an enclave of exclusivity but a reflection of diversity and inclusion. Marcus Jennings was no longer just a mechanic. He was appointed as the Director of Technological Innovation, leading efforts to develop groundbreaking aerospace systems. His first project was a new propulsion technology that promised to reduce fuel consumption by 40%, a feat that would revolutionize commercial aviation. The announcement was met with applause and hope. During the company's anniversary celebration, Alexandra Evans addressed the crowd. "Today," she said, "we celebrate not just technological progress but justice and integrity. We recognize that talent is universal, and opportunity should be too." Marcus watched as young engineers from diverse backgrounds worked on prototypes, their faces lit with hope and determination. His mother, Mrs. Jennings, 72, who had worked as a cleaning lady to support his education, sat in the front row, tears in her eyes. He reflected on his journey, from a boy repairing electronics in poverty to a leader shaping the future of aerospace. His success was not just personal, it was a victory for justice and equality. He understood that true change required more than individual achievement. It required dismantling systemic barriers and opening doors for others. His story inspired a new generation to dream beyond prejudice. In the months that followed, similar programs emerged across industries. Companies began to recognize that diversity was not just a moral imperative but a strategic advantage. Innovation flourished when talent was nurtured regardless of race or background. For Marcus, the greatest victory was seeing young people from marginalized communities believe in their potential. The look in their eyes, unburdened by doubt, was the real reward. His message was clear. The best response to prejudice is not just overcoming it, but creating pathways so that no one has to climb so high just to be seen and heard.